Okay, so video 4, here we go. Okay, so this one, first there's a list of Bible verses, and then there's another list of tactics of war. So, first of all, for this, so it's the first one is 2 Corinthians 10, 3 through 6. And it says, "For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war according to the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty in God for pulling down strongholds, casting down arguments and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, bringing every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ, and being ready to punish all disobedience when your obedience is fulfilled." Okay, so that gives another picture of the spiritual war. And then we have Ephesians 2, verse 2. All right, or I'll do 1 and 2. "And you he made alive who were dead in trespasses and sins, in which you once walked, okay, according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air," okay, that's the devil, "the spirit who now works in the sons of disobedience." All right, okay, I'll do 3 too. "Among whom also we all once conducted ourselves in the lusts of our flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, just as the others." And then it goes on, "But God, and all that delivered us from this." So, yeah, so it goes on from there like that. So it's another picture of what's going on in the spirit world. And now James 4. Here we go. Okay, James 4, 7 to 8. Okay, so this is another thing we do to guard against the enemy. 7, "Therefore submit to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you." Okay, so it's a two-way street. "Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded." Okay, and then it goes on, humbling yourself and all this. So that's what we have to do. Resist the devil and draw near to God. Okay, so there's that. Now, 1 Peter 5. Eight to 9. Okay, here. "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Resist him, steadfast in the faith, knowing that the same sufferings are experienced by your brotherhood in the world." Okay. Now, Galatians 1. And verses 6 through 9. All right, "I marvel that you are turning away so soon from him who called you in the grace of Christ to a different gospel, which is not another, but there are some who trouble you and want to pervert the gospel of Christ. Okay, so there is no other gospel, but it's a false gospel, in that sense, a different gospel, another gospel, They want to pervert the true gospel of Christ. But even if we or an angel from heaven preach any other gospel to you than what we have preached to you, let him be accursed. As we have said before, so now I say again, if anyone preaches any other gospel to you than what you have received, let him be accursed. All right, so there are other, false gospels, and we need to be on guard. So that's, tied into this, but, those people are accursed, like they're under a curse. So now the last one. All right, Second Chronicles. All right, 20. Okay, and it's basically, this whole thing, I won't read it all, but I'll just kind of paraphrase. Okay, so basically what happens is the people of Moab with the people of Ammon, they came to battle against Jehoshaphat, who was the king of Israel at the time. It might have been Judah, but back then. Then some came and told Jehoshaphat, saying, "A great multitude is coming against you from beyond the sea." All right, and so to make war, And Jehoshaphat feared and set himself to seek the Lord and proclaimed a fast throughout all Judah. Okay, it's Judah. So Judah gathered together to ask help from the Lord, and from all the cities of Judah they came to seek the Lord. Okay, so that's what they did. Then Jehoshaphat stood in the assembly of Judah and Jerusalem in the house of the Lord before the new court, and said, O Lord God of our fathers, are you not God in heaven, and do you not rule over all the kingdoms of the nations? And in your hand is there not power and might, so that no one is able to withstand you? Are you not our God, who drove out the inhabitants of this land before your people Israel, and gave it to the descendants of Abraham your friend forever? And they dwell in it, and have built you a sanctuary in it for your name, saying, if disaster comes upon us, sword, judgment, pestilence, or famine, we will stand before this temple and in your presence, for your name is in this temple, and cry out to you in our affliction, and you will hear and save. And now here are the people of Ammon, Moab, and Mount Seir, whom you would not let Israel invade when they came out of the land of Egypt. But they turned from them and did not destroy them. Here they are, rewarding us by coming to throw us out of your possession, which you have given us to inherit. O our God, will you not judge them? For we have no power against this great multitude that is coming against us, nor do we know what to do, but our eyes are upon you. Now, all Judah, with their little ones, their wives, and their children, stood before the Lord. Then the Spirit of the Lord came upon Jahaziel, the son of Zechariah. Okay, the son of, all right, in the midst of the assembly, and he said, listen, all you of Judah, and you inhabitants of Jerusalem, and you, King Jehoshaphat, thus says the Lord to you, do not be afraid nor dismayed because of this great multitude, for the battle is not yours, but God's. Tomorrow go down against them. They will surely come up by the ascent of Ziz, and you will find them at the end of the brook before the wilderness of Jeruel. You will not need to fight in this battle, Position yourselves, stand still, and see that the salvation of the Lord, who is with you, O Judah and Jerusalem. Do not fear or be dismayed. Tomorrow go out against them, for the Lord is with you. All right, and Jehoshaphat bowed his head with his face to the ground, and all Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem bowed before the Lord, worshiping the Lord. Then the Levites of the children of the Kohathites and of the children of the Korahites stood up to praise the Lord God of Israel with voices loud and high. So they rose early in the morning and went out into the wilderness of Tekoa. And as they went out, Jehoshaphat stood and said, Hear me, O Judah, and you inhabitants of Jerusalem. Believe in the Lord your God, and you shall be established. Believe his prophets, and you shall prosper. And when he had consulted with the people, he appointed those who should sing to the Lord, and who should praise the beauty of holiness, as they went out before the army and were saying, Praise the Lord, for his mercy endures forever. Now, when they began to sing and to praise, the Lord set ambushes against the people of Ammon, Moab, and Mount Seir, who had come against Judah, and they were defeated. For the people of Ammon and Moab stood up against the inhabitants of Mount Seir to utterly kill and destroy them. And when they had made an end of the inhabitants of Seir, they helped to destroy one another. Okay, so what happened here is they went into the battle and they were worshiping God, and that was the weapon. Okay, there's a lot about that, but that was the victory right there. So, and God confused these armies and pitted them against each other, so they destroyed each other, and the camp of Israel didn't have to lift a finger. It just all happened. Okay, so and basically it says no one escaped, and they had the victory, and they rejoiced and praised and thanked God, and that's what happened in that story. And then it says here, so verse 28. So they came to Jerusalem with stringed instruments and harps and trumpets to the house of the Lord, and the fear of God was on all the kingdoms of those countries when they heard that the Lord had fought against the enemies of Israel. Then the realm of Jehoshaphat was quiet, for his God gave him rest all around. Okay, so this is all in here as an example for us. These are lessons for us. It's symbolic of what goes on in the spiritual battle. So that's an important one right there. Okay, now I have a short list of Bible verses I'll write down. I'm not going to go over them, but this is like your homework. Okay, so 2 Kings 17, verse 17, and then 21, verse 6, and 23, verse 24. So chapter, verse, chapter, verse, chapter, verse, okay? And then we have First Chronicles, I'll abbreviate, chapter 10, verses 13 to 14. Okay, and then Second Chronicles, chapter 33, verse 6. Micah, chapter 5, verse 12. Nahum and he's around here, back there in the Minor Prophets, chapter 3, verse 4, and then one more, Isaiah 8, 19 to 20. Okay, this all talks about stuff going on in spiritual war and, what to do and what not to do, or something, what not to do, and so on. So, and I'm sure there are more, but these were some of the main ones on the list. So I just wanted to write them down and not go over them. You can look into that if you want. So I'll leave that list here a minute, and then I'll start going down this list of tactics of war. And then that'll be it for this series. If things as they come up, I'll go over them as I go through everything. But for this, that's it. And then another actual strategy that I didn't mention is this works everywhere in society. It starts when you're a kid. It's this whole peer pressure thing to fit in to what is considered cool. Okay, and ironically, it's usually all the things you're not supposed to do. Okay, so that's another prodding and ushering strategy where the devil gets you where he wants you. So just beware of that as well. Okay, now for this list. So I'll erase this. And again, this list of strategies of war, it applies to many things. So some of this you may recognize in different areas of life. You might see some of this at work in your country, or at certain periods of time in your country. Like, take an example of, what are we now, 2025, right? So maybe about, let's say, 5 years ago, kind of all over the world, we saw a lot of strategies at work. So things like that, you might recognize certain things, or in the workplace, you'll recognize certain things that are used as strategies. It's essentially to control and to defeat. Okay, and when I was looking into this strategies of war thing, you get the distinction between the actual boots on the ground combat, which is considered conventional warfare, and then you have what's called guerrilla warfare, which is including things like terrorism. And there's a lot, like, this has to do a lot with infiltration in another country. So this all ties in with the spiritual warfare. But I just wanted to mention really quick where this term comes from with guerrilla. It's spelled like this: guerrilla warfare. It's not like gorilla with an O. It's guerrilla warfare. And this is coming from the Spanish word for war is guerra. Okay, so this is like a little war. And I mean, it might not be little, but that's where the word comes from. So I just want to give that background on the word. Okay, so, okay, now, one thing like an enemy nation or camp or entity would do is, instead of coming in with obvious boots on the ground and machine guns or whatever, swords, whatever type of weapons like that they have, they will come in secretly, and they don't want you to know they're there. But they beat down the population through other means, and they wear them out. So in case there ever is a combat situation, the battle's already halfway won. Okay, so I'm going to go over all this kind of stuff. This is, mostly these strategies, okay, because we know the obvious conventional things. coming in, flying over, dropping bombs. I mean, this is obvious, and nations they do it, but not as much as they were doing it before. You know, they had trench warfare and things like that before. Nobody does this anymore. So, okay, one strategy is here. Like I'll list them all this way: to wear down your morale. Okay, so it doesn't mean in this case morality. I mean, it's connected, but it has another meaning. So again, I mean, I'm not going over every word. So if you're not sure what a word is, then just look it up. There's an online dictionary, you can use that. So wear down morale, which is related to this, demoralize. Okay, and another one is destabilize. And this is also something I've seen in the workforce. I've worked in many different fields, and I've seen this particular thing in the workforce where it has to do with, like, they devalue your work, they don't appreciate you, they criticize you, they run you down. Everything you do is wrong, everything is your fault, you're replaceable very easily. You're just made to feel like very small. Everybody's against you, your contribution isn't valued, your input isn't valued, everybody else's is. So that's taking place in workplaces, it's taking place in countries, it's taking place in different settings, but that's a tactic. Okay, and that's part of this wearing down your morale. So you feel insecure, you feel unappreciated, you feel unimportant, unvalued, and it just wears you down. So you're weak and you're easy to defeat. Okay, so there's that. And then we have another kind of area here is divide and conquer. This is probably more familiar. Many times this term is thrown around, this phrase, divide and conquer. Like they divide people groups so they're against each other. And then each people group separately is easier to control than all of them as a whole. Okay, so that's the idea behind divide and conquer. And this can be coming from anyone. It can be your country or another country that's infiltrated. Okay, all right, then we have sabotage. Like any effort you make, they try to sabotage that, to kind of destroy it, plot against it, ruin it in some way. Okay, a couple of physical examples. Again, I have this here, ambush. It's mentioned a lot in the Bible, and what this is, I'll just make a picture, is like, let's say you're in your house and they call you and lure you out of your house. So you're here and they're already hiding behind all these bushes, right? And then once you're out, they come and they surround you, and you have no way to escape. And then they, surround you and attack you and win because there are more of them than you. So that's an ambush. Okay, so you can see that in different settings. A raid is just when they come in, invade, and take over, and there's enough of them to do that. Okay, now, yeah, so again, these are more of the conventional things, a raid. But when I read this, it said, if their arms or armies are limited, they rely more on the non-confrontational methods, like these others over here, Terrorizing you is another one. Terror, okay? Scare tactics. We're all gonna die, it's a scare, totally overrated, right? So there's that. And I have to erase this now so there's room for more. And you can recognize this in different areas, including spiritual warfare, but not limited to it. We have exhaustion. Okay, so this can be from any form. They want to exhaust you in any way. It could be effort, it could be your hope, your plans, it could be morale, it could be anything, but it's not just a wearing down of your morale, it's exhaustion in any general way. Okay, so that's something they do. And then some of the things they use are propaganda. And one tool for propaganda, and another thing, okay, propaganda is basically used for persuasion. They're trying to persuade you, they're trying to convince you of a certain idea or whatever, so they use propaganda. One of the ways propaganda works is repetition. They repeat it constantly, so eventually people believe it. And then they'll cite authorities like they're the experts and they know more, So there are all kinds of tricks they use to get people to believe the propaganda. Okay, so scare tactics is another one, but so there's propaganda, and propaganda is aimed at winning the hearts and minds. And we've probably heard that phrase before. This is how it works. If they can convince you and get you on their side already, they don't have to make a battle against you. You've been recruited in their army already. Okay. And then another thing they do, they attack different things like your values. And this cannot necessarily be an obvious frontal assault, okay? This is like they slowly over time try to erode something. It's slow process here, okay? Values, beliefs. And this was all on the list. I mean, use your emotions. Just stir up your emotions. Attack your reasoning. Okay, they can use a lot of discouragement, make you feel like nothing you're doing is getting anywhere, there's no point, you have no hope, there's no purpose in anything you do, just trying to discourage you in general. There's that one. And this was all, unconventional warfare, okay? So, all right, one thing was, I'll get rid of this and okay, this one we've probably heard before. False flags. Okay, they rile you up and get you all in an uproar just to manipulate you to do a certain thing, whatever that is, okay? Then there's what's called the Trojan horse. This is infiltration, and it works like this. This is a real story that, this happened. That's how we got the term. And I guess it came from the city of Troy. Like they couldn't invade it, or it came from Troy. Somehow, it's connected. Okay, so they made a horse out of wood and brought it over on wheels to this city as if it was a gift. Once it got in the city gate, they had all those walls and bridges, drawbridges or whatever, defenses like that, and they couldn't get in. Well, this horse was disguised as a gift. So once they got it in the city gate, closed the gate and everything, and oh, look, what a wonderful gift we have. And then it opened up, and an army came out of it, and they were able to get in the city that way, and they defeated the city and took it over. So it became a famous thing. Oh, it's a Trojan horse, okay? And this works in biology. Germs can enter our body disguised as something positive, and in fact, it's something damaging to our body, a virus or something, and we'll get sick, whatever it is, bacteria. So it works that way too. All kinds of things work this way. Infiltration into the churches works this way. It looks good, but it's not good. And then it's too late. Okay, and then another one they had was bombardment. This is like an onslaught of arrows or any kind of attack where it just is endless. It's nonstop. You're hit by this and then you're hit by that, and it's just, it keeps going. It's also like to wear you down and overtake you. So maybe the devil noticed that, well, one thing doesn't do it. A little later, another thing doesn't do it. Maybe putting a lot of stuff together will do it. I mean, I can tell you many times I felt bombarded and I knew it was a spiritual attack. So, bombardment. Okay. All right. And then hopelessness, same kind of as discouragement, but they had that, so I'm listing it. Okay. Then anger, I mentioned that, get you angry. Pride, here, pride is this is more in the spiritual area. Pride and anger. Avoid that and be careful with that. That'll get you for sure every time. Okay, and making you feel like you're defeated when you're not. Like you're already defeated, but you're not. Okay, so defeat. Okay, this one. Depression. There are different ways of getting people into a state of depression, but it's similar, to discouragement and hopelessness. Okay, intimidation. Is just belittling, talking down to, being condescending, and appearing to be bigger than they are to make you feel helpless and small, threatening you in a way. It can be bullying, but intimidation is one that they use. And then you will feel this. You'll feel defeat before you are defeated. And then the battle's won, right? Okay. And then over underestimation. They use this a lot. Like, let's say they're not that big, they'll make themselves look bigger so that the other side will be afraid of them. Okay, so it's a false image. And then underestimation is they make themselves look smaller. So the other side thinks, oh, that's not so bad. We don't have anything to worry about. They're not so big. They're pretty small. And then at an opportune moment, they invade or whatever, and it turns out they're a lot bigger than they made themselves look. A common thing with that is like, how many times have you heard this one? Like, oh, the leader of a certain nation, oh, he's sick. Oh, that one has cancer. This one's probably not going to live much longer. And that one, that's kind of an example of this. Okay. And then there is this one. This is more spiritual, shaming. Okay, that's tied in with the guilt, shaming and guilt. Okay, and that can work in any setting. Okay, so there's that. Okay, fiery darts I talked about. It's sort of like bombardment, it's just a form of it. Okay, so those, all right. I know that light is kind of shining there, but okay, so this. Okay, let me make a note here so I don't forget I'm doing that one last. Okay, another one is constant fear. I see this a lot lately in general, okay? So constant fear is it's wearing you down psychologically. And we saw this again, that thing back then, not that long ago. Constant fear, just you know. And now, which I knew, by the way, I knew, so I didn't fall into that trap, but a lot of people did. Anyway, constant fear is like, you see this now a lot, like, oh, this is going to happen. Oh, that's going to happen. Oh, there's going to be a nuclear war. And oh, there's going to be a certain invasion or, biological terror thing. This is going to happen. The economy is going to fall apart. That's going to happen. And it is kind of like a constant fear. They're keeping you in a constant state of fear. There are things we need to know that are real, and we need to warn about that. So I'm not, um, running that down at all, but I'm just saying that sometimes this is going on. And I mean, I am the type that watches a lot of news from ulterior sources, so I like to stay on top of things that way. But I keep this all in mind, and I'm not afraid. I'm not worried anyway. Like I'm ready to die anyway. Okay, fine. But um, it doesn't scare me. But I don't have anybody to worry about really, so I'm in a special situation. But so it doesn't bother me. But I could see, like, if you let yourself be put under this, you'll be constantly worried about something else. And so, you know, you just kind of have to move that to another shelf and reserve it for that. Like, okay, it might not happen, it might happen, and what can you really do? You can prepare so far, and there's only so much you can do. And I mean, people forget, like, God is the one who's watching over us and providing for us and protecting us. And um, that might include the miraculous. So, don't get into such a state of fear and doubt that you forget that fact. Okay, so that's, the spiritual part of this here with that. And then there is this one, and they used this one too earlier, like I said. The enemy wants to get you isolated. Isolation, because then you don't have your support network and you're easier to convince and control because you don't have anybody to bounce things off of. You're probably lonely and you're probably depressed, and it's easier to manipulate you. It's easier to get you depressed and discouraged and hopeless. So it works in that kind of way. And sometimes there's nothing we can do about this. Like, we might be isolated because we don't have any good Christians around us. Maybe family members or friends left us because we are a good Christian. And that's just how it is. But God is always with us. So we're not alone. And sometimes we're meant to go through a time of this to grow and be away from other influences. So God can use it for good. Okay, now we have this one, which is called blockade, otherwise known as a siege. This is sort of like an ambush, and we see this in the Bible too. Like an enemy would surround a city and stop the flow of food coming in or anything, and eventually they would starve them out and just lay siege to the city, invade it then and take it over because they were so weakened they couldn't fight back. many times they would just come out and surrender and they would take over the city. So that's that one. And you just have to imagine how this goes in all these settings, including spiritual. I mean, there are so many possibilities. So I can't go over every detail of that, and everybody's situation is different. Okay. So one thing also I see a lot, and this ties into the last thing, is cult of personality. Okay, we see this with leaders, we see this in churches. The whole thing is surrounded by, or surrounds a guy. It's all revolving around one guy, his personality. It's all about him. It's a cult of personality. And we see a lot of that today. It all revolves around one person, and he's this big celebrity. So that takes place in many settings, but cult of personality is definitely in the churches. Okay, so there's that. And then mind control. Okay, so this is sort of a subset of that. And so now I'm getting into that one, which is the last one. So I'll do that. But I want to mention real quick some of this. I mean, it was just various places on the internet, but here, or from when I was in school, I took classes on stuff like this, so I'd know stuff but about this. But there's a YouTube channel called if you want to look into this more, the Paint Explainer. And he has two 8-minute videos. One is called Every War Tactic Explained, and one is called Every War Strategy Explained. So you can search for those two and watch that, and he gets into details more than this about these specific things if you want to know more about that. But now, regarding mind control, I mean, there's so many ways in which this works. Propaganda is a big one, and manipulating you in any way. Okay, and it's not that they can literally control your mind, but they can kind of almost like convince you of things and you don't even realize it's happening, and that's how they control your mind. So there is something called, here, I'll make more room again, I'll just put this word on top, and this is really the last one. So okay, mind control. And of course there are all kinds of tactics here, but one of them is hypnosis. Okay, and you might not sign up for this, but they're not waiting for that. Okay, how this works is, and it works, okay, like you might be sitting down watching TV or something, and your brain goes into a different state. There's this stuff about alpha waves and beta waves and gamma waves and different kinds of brain waves. So when you're watching TV, your brain goes into a more passive state. It's not an active state. And when it's in a passive state, it's like you're not asleep, but you're so relaxed that it's like you're halfway asleep. And they found out that that's when it's easier to plant an idea in somebody's mind and convince them of that that's true. So they use propaganda, they use programming, okay, to just get you to think something, whatever it is. It could be a social norm. I'll just say this, like, oh, sex without marriage is just perfectly normal, So anything like that. So this can happen in such a state. Okay, so I just want you to be aware of that. It's always good to be alert and aware of what's going on in your surroundings that way. It could be at a seminar, you're sitting in a chair and this goes on for maybe an hour or a little under an hour, And it's done in such a way that it halfway puts you to sleep. And in the middle of this 45-minute talk, okay, there are different names for this kind of talk, but somewhere in the middle of it, when you're right there, is when they plant something in there in the same way like the TV, okay? And you didn't even realize it. You just think, oh yeah, well, they're still talking about that thing. I mean, after all, I still have that book open right on my lap. I mean, of course they're talking about that. He wouldn't lie, would he? This is all straight out of, this book. And sure, and in the meantime, they convince you of something, and it could be political, it could be whatever, but it's planted in your mind. And then it's almost like towards the end, they come full circle again to what they started talking about. And then it almost wakes you up out of that. And yeah, okay, now you can leave, So just keep that structure in mind, okay? So this happens in a lot of settings. So, and they do things to make you compliant. That's another one with this compliance. They get you to do certain things just to see how compliant you are. Maybe you're asked to stand, and then you're asked to sit, and then you're asked to stand again. And why, right? It's just to get you to, as Simon Says, that game, conformity, get you to do what they want and say. And they notice the people who resist. Okay, so compliance. So when they ask you to do another thing, you'll comply with that too. Okay, compliance. So there's that. And then again, there are many things. I have two more under this category, right? One of them is, and this was another thing I got from a book when I was going through school, because I wanted to notice stuff, tactics that salesmen use. One of them is called reciprocation. And I've seen this with sales in stores. I've seen it in churches, all kinds of places where they give you a small gift for free. It's just a small gift, okay? And it's scot-free. And the intention behind this is that this obligates you to give them something in return. And many times that gift is a little bigger, because you feel obligated, you're indebted, and that's the thing they really want to get out of you after all, is this, or later more of those, or, it's a tactic called reciprocation. And I recognized that right away when I went to some of these churches, that they all use this. Like they'll give you a little paper gift bag with little goodies inside, or the mug, with the candy, and just various little gifts like that. And then, oh, could you just fill out this contact info card or whatever? And their goal is, you'll think, oh, they're so nice, and they gave me this mug for free. Oh, yes, I should go there. And then, the person ends up going there. It could be a business, it could be a church, whatever. And then you shop there all the time, or you give them your money all the time. And they get so much more out of that than what they gave you. That's where they get the money from, to buy these gifts. Okay, they're not working to go out and spend their own money to buy these gifts and support that little giving thing. No, they're using the money they're getting already. Okay, places like casinos can use this. I mean, all kinds of places, just trapping you so you'll be hooked in some way. Okay, so there's that one. And then the last one, really, really last one, and it's probably one of the biggest, is, I forgot the name they had, but I'm going to call it the effort hook. Okay, it's an effort hook. And this is used by cults. This is used by workplaces. It's used by all kinds of organizations. And how it works is this. Okay, they You walk in the door, whatever it is, you walk in the door, and they're nice and there are no strings attached right away. And then they get you interested. It could have been from the tactic I just talked about, but whatever, they get you in the door. And then once you're kind of sold on the thing, you're going there, you're shopping there, whatever it is, then they pull out other stuff that they want to get you they want to recruit you for stuff like volunteer work. So free labor, okay, it can be giving amounts of money. It can just be years of your life. And it's a lot of stuff. Okay, there's a whole list of stuff. And the person has already, after some point in time, they've invested a lot of either their own free labor or they've sacrificed things for that, you know. They've given a lot of money to this organization. They've been loyal for years and years of their life. They've defended this place, and it can be anything. And then it goes on, and then let's say after 20 years, they realize, people are sharing with them, you know what, this is a cult, and this isn't biblical truth, and, you need to get out of there, you're being deceived, and all that. So they might otherwise, if they were brand new to all of this, they might see the truth. But since they've already invested all of this for maybe 20 years, it's very hard for them to acknowledge that they wasted all of this. It's hard because, yes, it was wasted years, wasted effort, wasted money. They would have to acknowledge all of that. Yes, this was a cult, and I wasted all of this. And not only that, I threw it into the wrong thing. I even, helped something bad when instead I could have been helping something good. So there's that wasted stuff and pride. They have to be humble and admit that they were wrong about all of that. And these things are very hard to do for most people. It happens, but it's hard. And this is the trap right here, is they get them to do this because they know it will be hard for them to acknowledge this and just let it all go and say, okay, it was a waste. I'm walking away. I'm becoming a Christian now, whatever it is they're coming out of. And they know that. That's why they get them to do this. Sometimes they don't need the work. It's just to, you see what I mean? Like to hook them in that way that they've invested in it. And now that would all be lost if they have to acknowledge this was all wrong. And most people can't do that. Like that's too much of a blow to them, so they can't do that. And these are traps to keep them in the system. That's the only reason they do this stuff many times. So it's another, form of mind control to keep you hooked in by all this. And it's, reciprocation might be the thing to get you in the door, and then the effort hook keeps you there for 20 years or something. So, the sooner you can admit this was a mistake and get out of there, the better. I mean, cut your losses and get out. But okay, so mind control is used. This is used by the devil in spiritual warfare. Obviously, I talked about cults. It's used in all kinds of settings in the world. So I'm just trying to, get people freed from all these bondages, okay, and get you into the right place where you can just be free and serve God. I mean, that's all that's going to matter in the end. So, all right, and unhook you from those traps and all that stuff, and recognize these strategies of warfare. And it's war against your mind, your soul, your whole being, and get you to have the victory in spiritual warfare. Okay, so that's the main point of these videos, and this is the last thing, so I'll just close with that. I talked about it all. I know it was a long list. So, okay, that's it. And I'll be back with another video or so tomorrow. Okay, be blessed.